Alright, we're back at it again. Today is 8 December. I had to just jump back into this. I'm sorry I've gone off on this little side tangent down this rabbit hole about the fingerprints and the nitrates, but it is very important. We'll get back into the timeline later, but essentially if you don't have this, you don't have a case. Okay? And then it's just, well, at least against Oswald, then it's just a matter of trying to figure out who else did it. But this is what the Warren Commission went on. This is what the government stands on, and the established media stands on the fact they say that Oswald was in that window shooting the president with that rifle. But yet, I just read you yesterday, even the head of the Dallas Police Department, Chief Curry, can't put Oswald in that window. They want to. You can tell that he wants to, but because of the evidence and testimony, he can't put Oswald in that window. And neither can the Warren Commission. They can't put him in the window with evidence, so being that there's no trial, they've got a captive jury, and there's no, defense attorney objecting or challenging anything. They can just say what they want, and they say, Oswald was in that window because we said so, and therefore you should believe us because we're the government and we wouldn't lie to you. Just take our word for it. He was in that window. Alright, so how ridiculous that sounds. Just absolutely insane. But that's essentially what they're saying. Because, like I said, and we're gonna go through it again and find out, don't you think if they had Oswald's fingerprints on any of the bullets, the cartridges, the scope, the stock, the barrel, the rifle, the trigger, the bolt, any of those surfaces, they would have mentioned it? And all that proves is that Oswald handled the gun. It doesn't prove that he fired the gun. And then with the nitrates, don't you think that if Oswald had nitrates on his face and his skin, in his hair and his clothes, they would have mentioned it? Because it's that fucking important? Okay? Because, like I said, any half-assed lawyer who went to night school, Better Call Saul lawyer, could get up there in front of the jury and say, okay, fine. So the government says that Oswald was firing that rifle, and he fired those weapons, he handled that weapon, he fired that weapon. Prove it. Where's his fingerprints, Mr. Government? Where's the nitrate test showing Oswald fired that rifle? All we have is your word. Okay? So, Mr. Juror, the thing you have to ask yourself is not who do you believe, but you have to go by what the judge instructed you to. Okay, and in this case, there's no judge. But in a court case, you'd have to go by what the judge instructed. You have to go by preponderance of the evidence. Not your opinion, not what the state says happened. But if they're going to make a statement, they have to back it up with evidence. And right now, there's no evidence. It's just what they said. That's why Oswald was killed. That's why he couldn't have gone to trial. Okay, because once Oswald went to trial, game over, he would have been, not convicted. And then if he wasn't convicted, then who did the shooting, right? There's a conspiracy involved. So, anyway, we're going to go back to Officer Baker, Studebaker. He's the forensics guy that was dusting for prints. He goes through all that about how he learned on the job, and he dusted for prints, and he dusted on the rifle, and he dusted on the boxes, and didn't find any fucking prints anywhere on the rifle. Found a palm print in there. And then I read later, and we're going to go through what happened to all those palm prints that they found, or whatever supposed evidence they found. They sent it to the FBI. Okay, they didn't make copies. They sent what they had to the FBI, but they never were able to tie that to Oswald. They just said that's what they found. And then the FBI, don't you think the FBI, who had Oswald's fucking fingerprint card from the Marines and from this, I'm sure they fingerprinted him when he came back from from the Soviet Union. Don't you think they were desperately trying to prove Oswald's fingerprints were on that fucking gun? In that trigger? On that telescopic scope? On that stock? On those bullet casings? Don't you think if they had found it, they would have, Hoover would have got up there and announced it? Before the Warren report even came out, Walter Cronkite would have got up there and done a whole special on it. How they found Oswald's fingerprints, and this is the FBI agent, and you can trust the FBI, and you can trust Walter Cronkite, because we wouldn't lie. And Hoover's an honest and as straight as an arrow, right? So anyway, so if you look at Studebaker's testimony and you do a search, let's see, hold on one second, for the words fingerprints, it says, Studebaker, what sort of training did you have for the crime lab work you were doing? It's just on the job training. You go out with the old officers and learn how to dust for prints and take pictures and fingerprints. Now, I'm not faulting the training of Studebaker, and I'm not faulting, the Dallas Police Department in their infancy on fingerprint, identification, but, even if they had experienced officers, like from New York or the FBI, they still weren't able to find any fucking fingerprints. And then it says, have you had any special training in identification fingerprints? No, sir. We don't classify fingerprints too much where we are. We just compare them. So even if you had Oswald's fingerprint, okay, he wouldn't have been able to identify it anyway, because he wasn't trained in that. So there's fingerprints. Let's see, let's try the word nitrate. Doesn't exist in his testimony. Don't you think, Mr. Juror, that if Mr. Ball knew that Mr. Studebaker was the one taking the prints, that he would have gone through more than 2 questions about prints and made sure that he thoroughly questioned him about fingerprints and how important that was? Let's see, we'll do the word palm. Alright. And there you are, right there, prints. I should go back and do prints because they're using the word prints instead of fingerprints. And you just, let's see. You say you dusted with the magnetic powders. Did you lift any prints? There wasn't much. There wasn't but just smudges on it, is all it was. There was one little old piece of print, and I'm sure I put a piece of tape on it to preserve it. Well then, there was a print that you found on it. Wow. Yes, just a partial print. The print of a finger or a palm or what? You couldn't tell. It was so small. But you did dust it and lift some print. Yes. When you say you taped it, what did you do? Cover it with some paper? We have. It's like magic mending tape, only we use it strictly for fingerprinting. Let's stick with the paper. Alright. Well, over the piece of paper, 1 inch tape over it, I'm sure I did. And after you dusted the print, you just put a 1 inch tape over it? Yes, sir. Now, did you also lift a print off the box? Yes. You lifted a print off the box? Yes. Where was the box? The box was due north of the paper that was found. And it was, I believe we have it, I can read the measurements of one of these things, how far it was. Fine. It was 16.5 inches from the wall over there, indicating which wall are you talking about. It was the south wall of the building. You take a picture of the box before it was moved, yes. what he's talking about is the sniper's nest boxes here, okay? But that doesn't mean anything, because anyone's prints would have been on those boxes, because they've been handling and moving those boxes all fucking morning and all week as they were tearing up the floor. So let's do palm prints again. Was there a palm fingerprint? A palm. It was a palm print, yes sir. How does it show in the direction of the palm? Yes, which way? West. And let's see, sitting on the box. So he found a palm print on the box. So they're finding palm prints on boxes. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, we're back up here. I was in the building until 1 o'clock that morning and got there at 1, and I left at 1, and they had seized all of our evidence, and I haven't seen it since. Lieutenant Day compared the print before it was released to Oswald's print. He did. He compared it as Oswald's right print. Did you put some masking tape over the bit of card before you moved it? As soon as the print was lifted, you see I taped it, and then we took the print down. They just took the top corner of the box down there. It had been brought back and put in a box, and as being Oswald's right print, you put in the... So there's nothing really identifying it. It's Oswald's palm print. All right. Alright, so we're going to try the word print. P-R-I-N-T. So it's 80. 82. And it's mostly prints about his job, what he did. He lifts prints. So, again, if Oswald's prints were anywhere on that weapon, they can be all over boxes. Oswald's working up there, it doesn't matter. Don't you think they would have mentioned it in the Warren report? Alright, now I put in here into Google, were Lee Oswald's fingerprints found anywhere? Should have put on the rifle. And I got some hits, I got some results. This one is, how do you say it, Lone Nutter says that Oswald's prints were found there. But let's read what he says here. And he says, hard, common sense validation that Lee Oswald was in the book depository sniper nest at 12:30 p.m. on November 22nd, 1963. This is what the guy says is hard evidence. Now it says many people believe, and this is from the DVP's JFK archives. Many people believe Lee Harvey Oswald was completely innocent of murdering President Kennedy in November 1963. They think Oswald was nothing more than an unwitting patsy set up and framed to take the fall after the tragic assassination of America's 35th president. This patsy viewpoint is just pure nonsense. I-M-H-O. There is so much evidence verifying Oswald's guilt, evidence that any patsy plotters themselves cannot possibly have controlled, that any such patsy notions fall completely apart upon even a cursory glance at the evidence. Let's take a look at Oswald's guilt. We'll put that next. Oswald's own rifle was found on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. That doesn't mean anything. You know, people can plant weapons. That hasn't been unheard of. Was seen by a witness in the Oswald, or someone who resembled Oswald, was seen by witnesses in the sniper's window on the 6th floor, and Oswald's fingerprints were found on boxes within the sniper's nest. Now, he throws that out there like it's gold, but it's not, because there are 3 to 4 different descriptions of different men in that window, and more than one man. 2 men in that window. Only one of them, I believe it was Brennan, out of probably 10 different people, described Oswald. Okay? Oswald's fingerprints were found on the boxes within the sniper's nest. Well, that's not unusual, because Oswald was working on the 6th floor with everybody else. They were tearing up the floor. You have to move the boxes. They tear up the wood on the floor. Oswald, go pick up that box and put it over there in the corner out of the way. Not unusual. In addition to the above, there are also another very incriminating set of Oswald prints found on the 6th floor of the depository, where Oswald's fingerprints were on the homemade paper bag, which was found right next to the sniper's window. The information, the bag detailed, where is that at? Because I haven't read any testimony that puts Oswald's fingerprints on that bag. None. 3 different fingerprint experts identified the 2 prints lifted from the paper bag as those of Lee Harvey Oswald. Sebastian Latona of the FBI first identified the prints as positively being Oswald's. Then, in a separate independent examination of the prints found on the bag, 2 other experts, Ronald G. Whitmus of the FBI and Arthur Mandela of the Newark Police Department, came back with the very same results. So now let's copy and paste their names. We're going to read their testimony. And we're going to read their testimony next, because you can't just lay out stuff and throw it out there and say this and that, and there's no proof of that. So we're going to find out if he's talking out of his mouth or what. And let's see, Arthur Mandela. God, this rabbit hole just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Anyway, JFK assassination. I probably should just freeze it so you don't have to waste your time to see me do that, but that's how I do things. When I find something, I Google it, and then I go through and look at all the statements and try to read those. Alright, it's also very interesting to note just exactly which prints of Oswald's were discovered on the paper bag and where in the particular one of the prints was located. The 2 prints discovered on the bag were Oswald's left index finger and other, the key one in the crucial respect being Oswald's right palm print. Again, Oswald could have had his entire handprints and fingerprints all over that paper bag, but that doesn't mean he fired the fucking rifle. Okay? That doesn't mean anything. Okay? It doesn't mean a damn thing. Because there's one thing to handle a paper bag, it's another thing to handle a rifle and to shoot it and kill the president. Lee Harvey Oswald's right palm print was found at the end of the closed side of the bag, indicating Oswald had held the bag in such a manner where his right palm was supporting the weight of whatever was inside the bag, just exactly matching Wesley Frazier's testimony of how Oswald carried the bag into the schoolbook depository, back entrance. And remember, we went over that. He said he held it under his arm, up in the pit of his arm, and cupped it at the bottom with his fingers, which is what they're saying here. But remember, we measured the bag, and it was 3 feet, 35. The rifle folded down was like 31 inches. And then we went and measured from the inside, upper inside part of Oswald's arm to his outstretched fingers in that photo, and it was 24 inches. So, again, the bag couldn't fit there. That bag. Alright, we'll keep going. B. Wesley Frazier's testimony providing solid evidence that Oswald did indeed walk into... I saw him go in the back door of the loading dock of the building that we worked in, and he still had the package under his arm. Doesn't mean he had the rifle. He didn't see a rifle, he just saw the package. And again, that package with the rifle broken down won't fit under his arm like Wesley Frazier says. In my view, this valuable and incriminating evidence against Oswald is quite possibly the best print evidence there is in the whole case. Oswald's old prints being found on his very own rifle are rather incriminating, yes, but a conspiracy promoters like to point out with zealous glee, it's possible that the print taken from the rifle by the DPD might have been left there by Oswald some time prior. What print is he talking about? Because there was no print of Oswald found on the rifle. And on the other hand, physical evidence that exists, I mean, he's like pulling shit out of air that doesn't exist, or at least I haven't seen yet. As the other hard physical evidence that exists, fingerprint-wise, suggesting very strongly that Oswald was in the sniper's window at some point on November 22nd is the evidence Oswald's prints. 3 of them were found on 2 of the boxes that were found inside the sniper's nest itself. Again, Oswald, I mean, I'm like a broken fucking record. Oswald was working on the 6th floor like everybody else was. He was moving boxes like everybody else was so they could tear up, you know, the floor and replace it. I mean, everything he's saying is strong evidence doesn't mean shit. So he's sitting there presenting his evidence like the Warren Commission would do before a juror, and then a 2-bit lawyer can come along and just tear it to pieces like I'm doing. Okay? And again, beyond a reasonable doubt. That's all you need in a jury's mind, beyond a reasonable doubt. I'm putting doubt in the juror's mind because it's not clear. The state says, oh yeah, if you don't listen to objections, if there's no one opposing you, when the state lays it out, as they do in the Warren Commission report, it sounds reasonable. But then if you look at it from a different point of view, which is what, you know, a defense attorney would be doing, it doesn't sound reasonable. It couldn't have happened the way they said. The box evidence is very strong to support the idea that Oswald was present at the southeast corner on November 22nd. As for Seeters will, conspiracy theorists, I guess, will also point out it doesn't have to mean Lee Harvey Oswald constructed the nest or that was at the window with the rifle at precisely 12:30, shooting at anybody. That's another thing. I never thought about that. Someone could have marked what boxes Oswald, or made note of what boxes Oswald was picking up. Here, Oswald, pick up these boxes and put them in that stack over there. And then when Oswald was gone, they take, while they're wearing gloves, the boxes that Oswald had picked up and put over into the corner. That sounds like a patsy right there to me. Anyway, this is due to the fact that as an order filler for the depository, Oswald obviously could conceivably have touched or handled those exact cartons sometime prior to the assassination. You think? Although the location of the prints on the cartons, IMO is quite compelling and interesting as in an Oswald did it kind of fashion. Now, one thing that's never mentioned by the Warren Commission is that they actually found other fingerprints on the boxes in the sniper's rifle, the sniper court, but they eliminated all the other fingerprints. Okay, they eliminated all the fingerprints of everyone that was an employee inside the school book depository besides Oswald. Plus, as I said, the cartons with the LHO prints were not just the cartons stacked high up along the nest, the shielding cartons on the outside of the SN. But instead, the Oswald prints were found within the nest itself. On the box sniper would have been used, probably sit on while aiming his rifle, and 2 prints of one exact boxes that was used in the rifle nest by the assassin. So again, if you're going to frame someone and make them the patsy, don't you think you would make sure you get the boxes that they touched? So you've got Oswald moving boxes, and you've noted which ones he's touched, and put it in this stack here, Oswald. Thank you. Okay, go to lunch now. And then you wear gloves and you put that box to incriminate Oswald in the corner. Perfectly logical, just like he's saying. You know, he's saying one thing. This is definitely conceivable. Okay? Because isn't it odd, okay, that they're not mentioning, you know, other people handling the other boxes? They probably would have handled those other boxes in the sniper's corner. And there's going to be other people's prints. They may not have moved it to that corner, but when Oswald touched the boxes and someone moved it over there, it would have had other people's prints on there too, but they don't mention those. Let's see, did the plotters anyway, keep going. Exactly how did this crack conspirators orchestrate this plan so perfectly to ensure that only Oswald's fingerprints and palms would be found in those particular boxes? How did they know for certain which cartons on the 6th floor Oswald touched, which ones he had not handled? More incredibly foresight on the part of the plotters, it would appear. That's not hard to do. If you've got the plotters, okay, maybe one of the plotters, Mr. Truly, you know, maybe one of the plotters was told, you know, inside, I'll put it to you this way, maybe one of the persons inside the schoolbook depository was associated with one of the plotters, and one of the plotters asked him to have Lee Harvey Oswald move boxes to a certain area, okay, and only him. And then they went in and said, okay, you know, like Shelley, go tell Shelley to tell Oswald to do this. Shelley doesn't know that Oswald's being set up to, you know, for the assassination of the president. He just knows that's what he was told. Oswald, can you move those boxes over here from that corner to this corner? Okay? And he does. And then, when the sniper team comes up, they know where that set of boxes are. They've got gloves, they pick up those boxes, and they put them in the corner to incriminate Oswald. This is not hard thinking, folks. You got to think on a different level here, okay? It's not grand, crazy conspiracy stuff. You just got to think of the way that how would you incriminate Oswald? That's a good way to do it. The fingerprints on the paper bag were also very damaging to Oswald and indicative of guilt, more so than even the prints on the rifle or his prints on the boxes. What prints on the rifle? He keeps mentioning prints on the rifle, but there's none. Because it places Lee Harvey Oswald via his identifiable, verifiable prints at just exactly the same location where the 3 cartridge cases were also found, with all the shells being linked to Oswald's rifle in just exactly the same location of the sniper's nest. Again, Oswald may not know he's being incriminated. If he's part of this team he's investigating, they may give him a task. Bring in this package, okay, of curtain rods or whatever it is, and tell everybody it's curtain rods. Bring in this 2-foot package, tell everybody it's curtain rods, put it in the closet on the 2nd floor when you come in. And then one of the plotters comes in, picks up the package, okay, takes out whatever in it, folds it, and puts it in the 6th floor. This is not hard thinking, folks. Not hard at all. But still, even if Oswald sat in that corner and folded that package and put it in the corner, it doesn't prove that he fired the rifle. Plus, the bag prints place Oswald's fingerprints on an item, the brown bag, that has no logical or explainable or valid reason to be where it was found after the assassination, just lying on the floor below the window from where the rifle shots were fired at the President Kennedy. Again, you have to think at a different level here, folks. If Oswald took the time to wipe the rifle and take his prints off the rifle, don't you think he would have picked up the fucking paper bag and took with him and trashed it in the trash can. I mean, he hid the rifle. He took the effort to hide the rifle. Why wouldn't he pick up the paper bag? And notice how the paper bag is laid in an area. It's not laid on the boxes, okay? It's laid in an area where it can clearly be seen in that area. Why wouldn't have Oswald just taken the bag off over by the chicken bones and the lunch over there and left it over there? You got to think in a different level. The whole idea is to pin everything on Oswald, is exactly what this guy is saying, okay? And it worked. I cannot see any possible wiggle room for the conspiracy theorists with regard to this very strong fingerprint evidence on the paper bag itself. Again, I haven't seen any testimony saying Oswald's, fingerprints were found on the paper bag. Plus Wesley Fraser's testimony about seeing Oswald carrying a very similar looking paper bag into the depository at approximately 8 a.m. So you just keep going over the same evidence again and again and again. And, I'm just going to lay it out, folks. It's highly suspect that the FBI, who went into Oswald's funeral home when he was lying dead on the table and put ink all over his fingers, didn't take a print off his, and put it on a print card and then substitute those prints onto the bag. It wouldn't be hard to do. And then leave it there for an FBI agent, forensic analysis, crime lab to find, or a New York detective. Alright. Do the conspiracy buffs think that Oswald just happened to unwrap his curtain rods right beneath the sniper's window and then just left the bag in the nest? Or else evidently just ditched the rod somewhere, because we know he didn't enter his rooming house with any curtain rods at 1 p.m., nor were the rods found inside the Texas School Book Depository after the shooting. How do we know that? We don't know that. And how do we know that the fucking conspirators that were going to frame Oswald did just take the fucking curtain rods with them? I mean, this is stupidity. As they're exiting with their rifles that shot the president, in their communication gear, they've taken the curtain rods also. One way conspiracy kooks have tried to wrangle out of the Oswald obvious guilt and obvious presence on the 6th floor window at 11/22/63 has been the claim that the Dallas police planted the bag underneath the sniper's window after shooting in an effort to frame Oswald. Again, there's no picture of the bag there at all. Not one. There's a little dotted line showing they got pictures of the holes, they got pictures of the boxes, but they don't have pictures of the, of the paper bag. The theory is about as believable as the Patsy theory as a whole, which is wholesale unbelievable right from the get-go, because we then have to believe that the Dallas Police Department had somehow been able to plant Oswald's print on a fake bag without any plotters noticing it, of course, as per the norm with all conspiracy theorists. No non-conspirators ever notice a thing amazingly. Again, there's nothing saying the bag was even in the corner. There was a bag that was carried out by the Dallas police. They didn't find any prints on it. It was only the FBI, once it got to the FBI lab, that found it. So somewhere in the chain of custody between the Dallas police and the FBI lab, Oswald's prints got on there. Not hard to do. When you got a dead corpse of Oswald, you could easily put his fingerprints on the bag. Not impossible to do. Alright, let's see. Because all the three said they'd examined the bag and found Oswald's print. Let's see. Latona Widmus, okay. That doesn't mean anything. Again, the chain of custody between the police and the people who examined the bag, they could have easily put Oswald's fingerprints on the bag. I'm eagerly waiting for logical and believable explanations from the conspiracy theorists that will answer the questions of which the 38-inch brown paper sack, which could house Oswald's 34-inch disassembled rifle, as we see here, with Oswald's fingerprints on it, was in place where they had found the assassin sniper's nest, and still not have Oswald's presence in the window. Anyway, David Von Penn. Well, David Von Penn, very interesting. All right, so let's read some more here. Arthur Mandela. Let's see here. All right, so there is no independent testimony of Mandela on Google. Let's see, Ronald Witness. Here's the affidavit of Ronald Witness. Let's see what else we have here. Take a look at that one. All right. Hold on one second. So the only thing we have here, okay, is an affidavit by Ronald Witness stating on July 30th, 1964, I, Ronald Witness, have reviewed the testimony of Sebastian Francis Latona before the President's Commission on the Assassination of the President Kennedy and agree with the conclusions stated therein. I have conducted independent examinations of these items which were the subject of Mr. Latona's testimony. On the basis of these independent examinations, I reached the same conclusions reached by Sebastian Francis Latona, which are what? Nothing. I don't see anything yet. Let's see. We'll keep going. Here's the same thing. All right, now here, this is the craziness we have to deal with here, okay? So, this is a picture, not the print, but just the picture of a partial palm print found underneath the inside of the barrel, on the bottom of the barrel, after the stock was taken off. But when they did a comparison with Oswald, it doesn't conclusively prove that it was Oswald. So they're just saying there's a palm print there, but they have nothing to prove that it was Oswald's. And here's Sebastian Latona's testimony. Did you attempt to identify this print which shows on the lift exhibit C37? Yes, I did. Did you succeed in making an identification? On the basis of my comparison, I did effect an identification. And whose print was that? And whose print was that, Mr. Latona? The palm print which appears on the left was identified by me as the right palm print of Lee Harvey Oswald. That's just his opinion. And was Ron Witness, who's also, remember they, okay, let's do this. Remember they had to remove ink off of all of Oswald's hand and fingers at the funeral home. So that doesn't mean crap. And this is just Ron Witness saying he agrees with that. But where's the comparison? Where's the... It doesn't make any sense. Alright, we'll keep going. Here's the comparison of the fingers. And you can barely see this. This is from the the paper bag, this is from a card for Oswald. You can't even compare that. How they can say it can be compared is bullshit. Let's back up, see if they have anything else here. There's Oswald's card. They don't even have a palm print of Oswald. This is from the Armed Forces. Again, this is from the brown paper bag. Supposedly a fingerprint. You can't see shit. That's on a box. You see, so he's deceased. So they took these fingerprints off his dead hand. You see on 11/29. Actually, no. They would have done it before 11/29. On 11/25. Because he got shot on the 24th. They came in late that night. Took it on 11/25. There's one they did on 11/22. Oh, this is off the box there. Where's the prior palm print of Oswald? And why are there two bags? Look at that. You got one bag open, one bag closed. And it's not the same bag. There's two different bags here. Anyway, let's go forward a little bit. Again, I'm not a forensic expert, but I am qualified to sit in a jury of Oswald's peers. And I tell you, Mr. Prosecutor, if you showed me this evidence, I'd be saying, I can't tell the difference. It doesn't look like any difference to me. They're saying that came off the box, but nothing off, no fingerprints off the gun. Imagine this. Oswald's up there. He's just about to shoot the president. He's going to be nervous. He's going to be sweating. You know, he's wearing a t-shirt, so it's got to be pretty hot that day, 70, 80 degrees. But he's not leaving any oil or any fingerprints on the rifle, on the trigger guard, on the trigger, on the magazine, nothing. Now this one, look. They're saying that this one is Oswald, but look at the... It's hardly even a print there. But look at the ridges. It's not even the same. Look, you see this one here? This one has this little box here, or triangle. This one doesn't have the triangle. These points go off straight to this line. These points go off and then go to the left. Where is this line? Not there. Not even a match. And see, they don't want people comparing it. That's why they've darkened this picture. You see how this is more light? This is more dark. Because if people looked at it, they'd say, hey, that's not the same fucking finger. I'm not an expert, but even I can tell it's not the same fucking finger. Alright. So that's enough of that one. I'm going to hold on to this. I'm going to go looking through all their photos there. Alright, so let's see what else we got. So again, still nothing. It's a big nothing burger. That's all I'm finding. And again, like I said, I'm not an expert. I'm not a forensics person. I'm not a policeman. But it doesn't matter. Okay? It doesn't matter. Because the problem is, and this is why Oswald had to die, they'd have to present this evidence to a jury of Oswald's peers and prove to them, beyond a reasonable doubt, that it's reasonable these are Oswald's palm prints and fingerprints, and they're just not there. Here's one from a book. Let's see, hold on one second. Evidence exonerating Lee Harvey Oswald. Oswald's paraffin test negative for gunfire residue on his cheek, which is highly indicative that he had not fired a rifle recently. Although the presence of the gunfire residue detected by the paraffin testing is not necessarily indicative of having recently fired a weapon, its absence is highly indicative of not having recently fired a weapon. So what that's saying is, if they find paraffin, it doesn't mean you just recently fired the weapon. It could be there from a couple weeks ago. But not finding it means you absolutely didn't fire a fucking weapon. Okay? Oswald's fingerprints were not found anywhere on the rifle by the FBI. It is quite reasonable to assume that the FBI very thoroughly examined the weapon supposedly responsible for the murder of the President of the United States. Again, he's making a good point. Just like I've been saying, and like I said, any half-ass lawyer could get up there and say, Mr. Government, where's your fucking case? There is no... My client's fingerprints aren't on that weapon. He might have been handling those boxes while he was working up there that day. Okay? He might have brought in some curtain rods or whatever in that bag, and that bag was put up there with his fingerprints on it. But that doesn't mean that Oswald was sitting in that fucking window. Okay? What they're doing is they're throwing out a bunch of shit, circumstantial shit, and hoping you'll just buy it. Well, okay, well, if Oswald wasn't there, then who else could have shot the president? And this is not, in America, you don't have to prove you're innocent. You have to prove, you're innocent until proven guilty. You're not guilty until you can prove that you didn't do it, as in other countries. So Oswald didn't have to prove who did it or how it was done. All he has to do is put a reasonable doubt that it wasn't him that did it. And that's what the preponderance of evidence shows, okay? But with the Warren Commission report, they just throw it out there and people say, well, if Oswald didn't do it, then, well who could have done it then? Because these are honest, smart guys, right? They wouldn't lie to us, would they? And Walter Cronkite even got on TV and said that this is what happened, so it must have happened, right? I'm not an expert, so I don't know all the expert stuff about what they're talking about, but if they say that it happened, it had to have happened, right? No. It doesn't work that way. It's not because the government said it happened that way, and I can't prove that someone else did it, doesn't mean I'm guilty. Okay? That doesn't mean I'm guilty because I can't prove that someone else did it. That's not the way it works. Anyway. So, we got a copy of the Warren Commission's report here. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to find... Actually, no, let me leave this till later because that's quite a bit to go searching. Go fishing, I guess you could say. And I found this in Quora. And it says, is it true that the fingerprints of Lee Harvey Oswald were not found on the rifle found in the Texas School Book Depository building? No. Dallas police found and photographed identifiable fingerprints on and around the trigger assembly, as well as smudges without enough ridge detail to classify when they examined the rifle on the scene. Other fingerprints were found in the boxes in and around the sniper's nest. Now he just mixed two things together. They found fingerprint smudges, but that doesn't mean it was Oswald's fingerprints. It could have been anyone's. So don't confuse yourself, okay? You have to have clear, the government has to bring clear, concise, identifiable evidence showing it was Oswald. Not that there were fingerprints, and then, oh, we're saying it was Oswald, and there were fingerprints. We can't prove it was Oswald's fingerprints, so therefore it must be Oswald. Bullshit. It has to be clear that it's Oswald. A palm print was found in a section of the barrel normally protected by the stock. The photographs were lifted and sent to the FBI crime lab, which was supposed to make copies, analyze the material, and return them to Dallas. They never did, but the Dallas retained original negatives of the prints, which were produced later. And when the prints became a bone of contention, it isn't that like people didn't know wiping off fingerprints. Yeah, so Oswald just fired all those rounds and in 90 seconds wiped up all the fingerprints. So what he's saying is that the original prints are still at the crime lab, but the Warren Commission used the Dallas photographs instead of the original prints. Don't you think if they had the original prints they would have used them? My suggestion is to look into the experience both Lieutenant Day and Rubaker had taking fingerprints. You might be surprised how inexperienced they were in undertaking this process, despite Lieutenant J.C. Day's years in the crime scene section. Take a look at the detective work involved in taking statements from employees at the Texas Theater. Anyway, they jump around there. No prints were found on the rifle. On the day of the assassination, the rifle was shipped to Washington, the FBI lab on the 23rd, and they concluded that no identifiable prints were recoverable. 2 days later, so that would be the 25th, when Oswald has been killed, and they took those ink and palm prints off of Oswald while he's laying on the slab. However, there were no photographs made of the palm print on the rifle before lifting, a standard practice at that time. There were unidentifiable partial prints on the trigger guard. No prints were recovered on the shells or other parts of the gun, so there is some doubt as to the veracity of the palm print, and even if it was Oswald's gun, proof that he was still the gunman is still weak. I could own a gun and someone else could take it and kill someone, okay, and then plant it to frame me. It wouldn't be the first time, okay? So everyone else is saying exactly what I've been saying. And again, I go by the philosophy of logic and evidence and just, common sense. And common sense, the first thing it's going to say, and this is why I went off on this long tangent, is if Oswald was up in that sniper's nest and fired that rifle, like the Warren Commission says, in which even Dallas Chief Jesse Curry still has doubts about that, where's the evidence? Where's the fucking beef? Where are the fingerprints on the rifle? Where's the nitrate test coming back positive on Oswald's cheek showing he fired a rifle? It doesn't exist. It's just Oswald's prints were on a box in the sniper's nest. Oswald's prints were on a bag that we didn't have a photograph of and can't prove that was in the sniper's nest. Okay? There's no beef. Like I've been saying. Again, there may be other evidence out there that I'm not aware of. This is a learning process for me and for you. But I'm not finding anything. I'm reading through all these statements that I'm Googling. I'm not finding anything, and no one else is finding it either. There are no fingerprints on the rifle said to be used by Oswald. I thought maybe someone would put links showing, yes, here's the links to the Oswald rifle or fingerprints. There's nothing. See, don't you think if people knew there was evidence there, they would have posted it? Just like with the Warren Commission. Don't you think if the Warren Commission found fingerprints, they would have posted it? Anyway, I'm not going to get into it. It's a whole manual on lifting fingerprints. Now, this is very interesting. So, they put they handled semi-automatic, had people handle magazines, handled unfired cartridges, had people handle spent cartridge casings and revolvers. Okay? And out of all those, there was, what, over 1,000 handling of those things. This is the percentage of fingerprints that were suitable to be compared that were recovered. Very, very low. On magazines, on unfired casings, very, very low. Very interesting. So, the evidence shows that finding prints on cartridges and rifles and stuff like that would be very low percentage. Alright, so we're going to keep going. And then I ask the question, Lee Oswald's nitrate test. Let's take a look at that. I Google it and then I go down and look at the documents. These are all different ones here. Alright, so that's enough of that. We're going to read these different points of view here. Alright, various reports on paraffin nitrate tests on Oswald. So we got 18 pages of reports. Let's take a look at what they say. These are the actual reports done by the Identification Bureau. This is the Crime Bureau in Dallas, right there on the 23rd. Done by G.H. Dowdy and V.G. Brown. One manila envelope containing a paraffin test cast on the right side cheek of Lee Harvey Oswald. One manila envelope containing the paraffin cast of the left hand of Lee Oswald. One manila envelope containing the paraffin cast of the right hand of Lee Oswald. So they got him covered. They did his right cheek, because that's where he would have sighted with his right eye. They did his left hand and his right hand. And there you go. The Oswalds, the suspect, Kennedy and Tippit are the deceased. Let's see what the results are. There's the back page. Hold on one second. Now this is just written out. Okay. It's written out what was just read and typed there. And look at that. They're doing it on the 23rd, Saturday at 1 o'clock in the morning. So Oswald, think of it this way. Oswald's being dragged in and out of rooms with people who have guns, who've probably been shooting their guns at target practice, and he's being handled by those people. Okay? Think about that. The paraffin from their gunshots from maybe practicing that day or the day before is now being contaminated onto Oswald. They should have done a paraffin test right off from the very, very beginning. Let's see if we have a result here. Hold on one second. And here is a supplementary report on the 24th. I guess this is before he got shot. And it says, on 11/23, Captain G.M. Daugherty and Detective B.G. Brown of the Crime Bureau Service, I guess, delivered paraffin casts of the right and left hand and side of the right cheek of Lee Harvey Oswald to DCCIL at Parkland. These were given to Louis Anderson and Dr. Mason for nitrate tests. On 11/23 at 2:45 p.m., Detective J. Donahue and B.G. Brown went to the 5th floor jail, removed hair samples from the head, chest, arms, armpits, legs, and pubic area of Lee Harvey Oswald. This was requested by the FBI agent Hall and taken in his presence. Fingernail scrapings were also taken. The samples were placed in round pill boxes and marked and given to the agent Hall. I don't know about back then, but nowadays a good lawyer could challenge that, because unless they had a fucking warrant, you can't just be taking samples of people's hair and DNA. But that's, nowadays. I'm sure back then they just did whatever the hell they wanted to do. Alright, so we're almost finished. I just want to see if I get a result on this paraffin test here. Hold on. So this is the results of the test. It's very, very important. Okay? Results of examination. No nitrates were found on exhibit number 1. Number 1. 1 manila envelope containing a paraffin cast to the right side of face of Lee Oswald. Case dismissed. Everybody can go home now. Oswald didn't fire that fucking rifle. If he did fire 3 shots from that rifle, he would have he would have gun residue all over his face, in his hair, all over his face. Negative on the right side of his face. That means he didn't fire that fucking rifle. Okay? You can't get around that. You can't excuse it. You can't say it didn't happen. You can't say, well, maybe it's just not coming out positive. No. It's a paraffin test. That's the end of it. That is the end of the case right there. This trial probably wouldn't have gotten past a grand jury if they knew anything about, if they read this report. Okay? This case would have been dismissed. Oswald could not make it to trial. That's why they had to kill him. He didn't fire that rifle. His fingerprints weren't on the rifle. The paraffin test said he didn't fire the rifle. Let's take a look at the rest of the paraffin test here. Nitrate patterns consistent with the subject having discharged a firearm were present on exhibits 2 and 3. The pattern on exhibit number 3 is typical for the pattern produced in firing a revolver. There you go. So 2 and 3 would be his left. Let's see, hold on. The pattern on exhibit 3 is typical of the pattern produced in firing a revolver. Number 3, 1 manila envelope containing a paraffin cast of the right hand of Lee Oswald. So he may have shot Tippit, but he didn't shoot the president. So that cinches the case right there, my folks, my friends. What that tells me right there is that Oswald was trying to stop the assassination. He was investigating these right-wing groups for somebody. Maybe the Department of Justice, maybe he was an undercover agent for the FBI, who knows. And reporting back to them. Okay? And then he reported to them and stayed inside, you know, to be out of harm's way or whatever. Maybe he thought it wasn't going to happen. Then once he did find out the president did get assassinated, then he realized he was in trouble and that something had gone wrong. So he went home. Well, first he went to try to talk to Ruby. And when Ruby Carousel Club was closed, he got on the bus, was seen by his landlady, went down on the bus, got caught in traffic, got in a cab, went home, maybe thought he was being followed, and had the cabbie drop him off a couple blocks away. Went back and got his gun because he knew they were going to come after him. Okay? He knew he was in deep shit. Again, why do you not, you go to assassinate the president, why don't you take your gun with you? Because you hope that what happened wasn't going to happen. So he comes home, he's doing a beeline to Ruby's house to try to figure out, well, how come we weren't able to stop it? And, you know, Tippett, who may have been, we're going to go over Tippett's movements. It sounds very fishy that Tippett was probably involved, like I said, different people on different levels involved in the assassination somehow. And his job was to stop Oswald. But before he could stop Oswald, Oswald got the jump on him and shot him. That's one scenario. The other scenario is that someone else shot Tippett and Oswald went straight to the theater. Also, the scenario could have been that Oswald was at the firing range with his, revolver the day before or a week before, firing his revolver. But it doesn't look good for Tippett's death, but it's impossible for him to have killed the president. But then again, they painted on the same brush. Well, if he shot the policeman, he must have shot the president, right? But there you go, right there. I'm going to save that. That is like crucially important. That is probably one of the most important documents right there of all. Case over, folks. Let Oswald go free. Well, maybe charge him with shooting a policeman, maybe. Okay, but we're going to get into that, and there's hell of a lots of problem with that too. Okay, so we're going to continue with this tomorrow, and we're on document number 9 of 18. So, and it's 2 per page, so there's probably about 4 more documents that we'll go over, and I don't know where that's going to take us. Okay, again, this is a discovery audit for me. I did my timeline where I matched up everything with dates, but I'm still learning too. Okay, so we'll see where this leads us. Like I said, I'm for the truth and the evidence wherever it leads. Okay, I have my own opinions about what happened, but I'm not going to stick to those if evidence comes up that proves something else. Just like, with that Carcano, how do you fire that? How do you load it? That clip? It was different than what I thought. I thought it was like one of those M1s, but it was different. So I'm willing to go wherever the evidence leads, not decide what happened and then gather and cherry pick the evidence like the Warren Commission did to prove my already predisposed conclusion. Anyway, that's it for today, folks. Good luck. Take care. Please write comments and tell me if I'm in the wrong direction or suggest something, but give me some. Don't just give me your opinion. Back it up with evidence. If you're going to say some shit, you're going to talk shit, back it up with documents and evidence. All right? All right, good luck. Bye.